I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm taking a user-submitted suggestion and looking at the Sage abilities from Tears of the Kingdom, but with a little twist, because I'm also ranking the Breath of the Wild champion abilities, sorpresa! I'm not ranking 4 abilities today, I'm ranking 8. Now some quick housekeeping and spoilers for the Tears of the Kingdom late game. I won't be including Mineru's Vow of Spirit ability from Tears of the Kingdom, as it's such a vastly different power from the others on this list. It's a mech that you can equip with different Zonai parts, effectively making it more of a Zonai tool than a small power that you can use. It just doesn't feel like it's on an even playing field with the other abilities on this list, and also I just haven't had enough chance to mess around with Mineru yet. And I'm including the champion abilities from Breath of the Wild because they serve an identical function to the Sage abilities, and I'd rather not have to make 2 videos on a topic with just 4 entries each. I also have a fully recorded 100% playthrough of Breath of the Wild, so I need more excuses to use that footage. Without further ado, all 8 Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom special abilities ranked. And let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Based on how I end up ranking these abilities, you're going to understand my playstyle when it comes to the last 2 Zelda games. I expect, depending on how you engage with the combat and the tools at your disposal, everyone will have varying degrees of utility for each ability. So for me, for my playstyle, my least favorite ability is Daruk's Protection. To start with though, let's note the positives. The shield can protect you from any type of damage. An enemy swing that gets through your defenses? Blocked. Stray projectile you couldn't see coming? Blocked. A guardian laser beam? Deflected. The potential is there to help players not used to the game's combat from making costly mistakes, and is very useful in a first-time playthrough. But once you're more confident in combat, Daruk's Protection becomes a moot point. Once you know the timing to flurry rush enemies or perfect parry a guardian laser, you won't really need to block attacks. And sometimes Daruk's Protection can be used up by mistake. You might block something minimal knowing your shield can handle it, only whoops, you left Daruk's Protection activated, for Daruk to just be like, "Protected, little guy." I found myself accidentally using his ability too often in the wrong moments, to the point where it became a little intrusive, and that's a me problem, but that's also the point of my rankings. I'm ranking based on my playstyle, and not necessarily the optimal playstyle. So I'm very reckless. I don't often think about my buffs all that much, nor do I engage a terrible amount with the deeper systems of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Can I hurt something? Does my weapon have big number damage? Perfecto. So blocking just isn't in my vocabulary, and that means that Sidon's power of water isn't quite my cup of tea, but more so than Daruk's Protection. Since I did my Tears of the Kingdom boss ranking, link in the top right corner, I received so many helpful comments helping me to understand how to utilize Sidon's power effectively. Thank you so much, everybody. Such as aiming with the throw button to fire off the water, how different weapons fire off different water variations. The attack power of this ability is what keeps it above our number 8 spot, as while Daruk's ability can be used up to 3 times in quick succession, Sidon's water shield is used up once before vanishing, which means that the defensive capabilities aren't what I'm interested in. The offensive abilities are more appealing to me. Of course, it's also hard to gauge the champion abilities and the Sage abilities due to the very different cooldown systems in place for both games, so I'm not gonna take that into account terribly much, otherwise none of the Breath of the Wild abilities would stand a chance here. But I can tell, even with an understanding of Sidon's ability now, that I'd use it circumstantially when the need arises, as opposed to often in my combat. And that keeps it at number 7, I'm afraid. I look forward to seeing what other more skilled players can do with Sidon's Vow of Water, as I feel it has a ton of potential moving forwards. Perhaps a hot take, given my penchant for destruction, but next up on the list is the Vow of Riju and her lightning ability. With this power, Link can create a field around the Riju avatar, and shooting an arrow at a target or enemy within the field will cause a massive lightning strike. This is extremely powerful in the Gerudo questline and against any enemy types weak to electricity. Imagine firing this off at enemies coated in water or standing in a puddle from a Zonai hydrant as an example. It has a ton of offensive utility, but also relies on Riju to be positioned correctly. I've seen on Twitter that a lot of people struggle to keep Riju in the right spot to use her ability, and I found with my own experiences that sometimes I'll have to run back to her and lead her to where I want her to go. She sometimes just doesn't follow me. It makes using her ability a little frustrating, especially with the long charge-up time for the electric field and the cooldown of her ability after it's used. Yes, it does a hefty amount of damage, but by the end game, I feel like it gets outclassed by your own weapons and materials. Get a good bow that shoots triple arrow shots, attach some yellow choo-choo jelly to it, and watch the shocks go. If Riju's in position and I need some extra damage, I won't hesitate to use her. I just don't think she's going to be my immediate go-to in any combat situation. More of a backup that I pull out if things get rough, or if I want to do a specific setup that requires her unique brand of frying people. Let me know whether Riju works well for you in the comments, or whether she has a mind of her own. If I could just take a few moments of your time, I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2023. I don't know if we can do it, but I'd love to try. Look at how many of my viewers aren't subscribed. Let's rectify that. Be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on my weekly content. Back to the video. When I began drafting this ranking, I initially had the Vow of Yunobo in my top 3. After all, he's my second most used Sage ability in Tears of the Kingdom, and really comes in clutch when it comes to having defenses on my very basic Zonai vehicles. He curls up into a defensive ball, and using his sheer speed and classic cannonball action powered by his Daruk's protection, he can be launched in any direction of your choice by aiming the reticle. You'd think this is an amazing combat power with the ability to disrupt enemy formations, and that is the case for lesser enemies, but his utility lies, as stated earlier, with your Zonai tech. Riding on the minecart up Death Mountain or in the Fire Temple, you can launch him at your foes as you drive past. This has the potential for so many cool setups, but has one very major drawback. Yunobo is very large, and for some players, takes up too much space when at the front of any given Zonai vehicle. This has caused many to switch his power off, even with that offensive utility. On the ground, he doesn't do much damage to his opponents, as his attack is more used to stun enemies or to finish them off. It really shines when it comes to destroying breakable walls and mining zonite ore deposits in the depths. If you're out of mining tools, pop out Yunobo, watch the ore fly. It's better than using bomb flowers or remote bombs, which gives it a big leg up for me in utility. I just wish Yunobo had a bit more firepower against ground enemies, as he's designed to take out flying enemies on those precarious platforms instead. If there's one ability I really miss in Tears of the Kingdom, and one that I didn't think was gonna be out of my top 3, it's Revali's Gale. Easily the most useful traversal power from Breath of the Wild, as it's the only ability that affects how you move through the world. Being able to conjure your own gales to rise high into the skies with your paraglider was a stroke of genius. And unlike the other Breath of the Wild powers, I like that we actually got to see the process of Revali learning this ability in the Champions Ballad DLC. It gives it an extra touch that I really appreciate, though I'm also just a Revali simp, so what's new? Once you gain this ability in Breath of the Wild, you can't go back. It's just so convenient to gain height, especially when you start exploring the higher regions like the Gerudo Highlands or the Hebra Mountains. It's perfect in rain, as you can ignore not being able to climb by instead blasting into the air with a tornado. But what it has in height, it lacks in distance. Very often I'd use Revali's Gale to give myself a boost across a chasm, but lacked the forward momentum needed to make the journey without issue, which left me in a lot of sticky situations, so to speak. And in Tears of the Kingdom, Revali's Gale is effectively replaced with Zonai Tech. You can bring out a fan, place it up on the ground, and hit it to get the same effect. Or, if you want something quick and easy, tie a rocket to your shield, same effect. Yet nothing beats the simple convenience of Revali's power and not needing to go into a menu, bring out an item, Ultra Hand or fuse it, etc, etc. I miss Revali. It's only fitting then that the next ability on this list is the final Sage ability from Tears of the Kingdom, and the best utility ability we've been given so far. The Vow of Chulin is what happens if you Ultra Hand Revali's Gale and rotate it forwards by 90 degrees. Yep, you just made the Gale horizontal and suddenly we now have distance. In Tears of the Kingdom, verticality is covered by your many abilities or the Skyview towers that fire you high into the air and allow you to skydive to various locations on the map. So having an ability that lets you change your direction while still keeping your height is invaluable. And Chulin's Gale has an incredibly small cooldown which makes it easy to use to get a nice boost across whatever you're paragliding towards. For longer distances, you may be better off using Zonai Tech, but as a Zelda purist, I'll likely more often than not attempt to use Chulin before pulling out any of the technical Legos. It can also be used in battle against enemies, though I assume it will only stun smaller enemies and not larger ones. In my experience, I haven't really experimented with Chulin's power in battle, preferring to just let his avatar headshot my foes with scary accuracy that I adore. He truly is Link's bestie. Now, if they could just mute the sound he makes every time he conjures his Gale, that might put it in my number 2 or number 1 spot. Just missing out on the gold is my favorite offensive ability from the last 2 games. It's Urbosa's Fury. Naturally, this is a very simple ability to use. You hold down the charge attack, let Urbosa's lightning field expand from Link's body, and once you're ready, let go of the button and watch the sparks fly. Urbosa's Fury is powerful, able to stun large enemies and outright smite weaker ones with ease. It can be easily comboed into other attacks, meaning you can break it out whenever you want in battle for some extra damage, and you don't need to run around looking for a Reju Sage to activate it, so it instantly beats its Tears of the Kingdom counterpart for me. Urbosa's Fury can be used 3 times before it requires recharging, and yeah, I get it. A small part of me almost feels guilty when I let Link snap his fingers and make everything go snap, because it's just too OP. Almost. It trivializes tough encounters and acts as a nice easy mode for newer players, while just being a satisfying finisher for me if I'm looking to kill an enemy nice and quickly. It helps that Urbosa's Fury has so much sassy energy to it. I mean, come on, the most fabulous finger snap alive. Of course I was going to be enamored by this ability, helped by the fact that Urbosa is one of the most powerfully confident characters in the series. It's fitting that Riju's ability still hasn't reached the potential of Urbosa, as the young chieftain still has room to grow, whereas Urbosa represents the pinnacle of Gerudo power, and her Fury embodies this trait, but it's not my number 1. I said earlier in the video that I am a reckless player. I'll have a plan going into many scenarios, but I don't think that far ahead. I'm liable to take some damage, and sometimes things just don't go my way. So when that happens, thank goodness in Breath of the Wild, I have a safety net, and said net is Mipha's Grace. It's a boring ability, let's just get the obvious out of the way, but it's also an overpowered fairy that revives Link from death once, returning him to full health, while also giving him 5 extra bonus hearts. What this means is that it's a rare ability that actively benefits from Link getting stronger, because the more powerful Link is, the less he needs to worry about dying, but the more worth he'll get out of Mipha's Grace if he were to get hit by something unexpected and die. Mipha's Grace when you have 6 hearts, fine, that's not that crazy. Mipha's Grace when you have 20 hearts, that's a lot more impressive. This is also a perfect ability for people who just want to test Link's abilities without any extra champion nonsense, as Mipha's Grace holds no offensive value. It's a purely defensive ability that lets Link back up after making a mistake, and in games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where death is so easy to find, it's invaluable. Even more so when you upgrade it to its plus ability, giving it an 8-minute recharge time, which honestly, potentially invaluable if you're fighting a tough Lionel and the fight drags on. It's the one power I truly miss in Tears of the Kingdom. It may be the vanilla of abilities, but vanilla is tasty and can synergize with everything. Well, except making Mipha a nuanced and interesting character beyond her infatuation with Link in the English dub, but I digress. Mipha's Grace is now ready. This was a fascinating topic to cover, and I know that what works for me won't work for you, so please let me know your rankings in the comments below and which abilities work best for your playstyles. You're all awesome. Be sure to parry that subscribe button for more weekly gaming content. My socials are on screen now, so feel free to follow me where you feel comfortable. I recommend my Twitter. A massive shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. You guys keep the channel alive. Thank you so much for another month of support, and I will see you next time, guys. Adios.